City Clerk's first iPhone said it's 5:46 p.m. We had a scheduled 5:30 p.m. start.
Come on, Grandpa.
Absent are council members Gajewski and Osborne. We have Councilperson Gadsden here. Councilman Vagiano is here. And please pass one to Councilman Rivera, please.
Michael.
Thank you. We have Councilman Robinson at the end of the table, hiding in plain sight. Councilman Rivera is here. We're missing Councilperson Waterman, and the Council President is here, as well as Councilman Young. So we got enough to get started.
Okay. Matt?
Matt Ward is here. For what items, Matt?
For 10X and 10Y.
Any ordinances?
No ordinances.
Okay, let's go to 10X and Y. If you're there before I am, Matt, you can read the titles.
Okay. For 10X, it's quite a long title. The resolution of the City Council of the City of Jersey City.
Hang on a second, please. I've got some
Oh.
kind of issue.
Tanya, did she get back to you?
I'm just talking about the chair now. Talking in the chair now.
Sorry, council members. All right, we're back on the record again with 7 members of the council. This is Monday, November 27th, 2017. We had a 5:46 start. Absent council members Gajewski, Osborne, and Waterman. Mr. Matthew Ward. Please, sir.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Jersey City authorizing the Planning Board to investigate whether the property known as Block 1101, lots 1 through 10, and Block 1901, lots 1 through 19, on the tax map of the City of Jersey City, State of New Jersey, open parentheses, fronting on Tunnelly Avenue, Bleecker Street, and Carroll Avenue, close parentheses, should be designated as an area in need of redevelopment with the power of condemnation pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. NJSA 40A:12A-1. So this is a resolution for a study area that actually was already authorized to study. The planning board was already authorized to study, and we went through and studied it and carried it through to designation, and in fact it was designated. However, there was some turnover in staff, and in going to write a redevelopment plan, it was uncovered that that the designation wasn't properly studied. So this is a redo, essentially. It's asking for the council's authorization to investigate the area again to see if it's an area in need of redevelopment, and it is very clear that this is for the power of condemnation, to study it as an area in need of redevelopment with the power of condemnation. It's on Tunnelly Avenue.
So this is another just a study, right?
This is just a study. It doesn't allow for condemnation by whether if the council votes to authorize the study, but it is possibly the outcome.
We know you, sir.
So Matt, the last time when we passed a resolution, what is different between this one and that one?
Well, it's not really different at all. It's how it was designated. There's through case law, there's something called the Harrison notice. It's from a case that happened in Harrison that requires several different notices of the property owners when condemnation powers are given through the designation of a redevelopment plan. And larger area, yes.
So the study was conducted?
It was conducted, but the notices referred to as the Harrison notices weren't carried out. And that was discovered upon going to start writing. We will have to go out and redo it and take a look at the existing conditions now, today. Actually, through this, I believe that the JCRA is looking to contract.
But do you think that you necessary of that a condemnation thing in that area?
Excuse me?
Condemnation, the eminent domain powers.
Yes, it's clear that when you're looking to authorize a study, that it's clear in authorization that it would allow for the potential of condemnation or non-condemnation, which will be what I touch upon in my next resolution. But it should be clear from that beginning, or it should at least state that the outcome could be either one.
So I'm telling the truth, I didn't get a chance to read the whole pages, the whole documentation. So if we provide this counsel, if we that this redevelopment area need a condemnation, then can't you give us like a summarized reason why this area redevelopment area need a condemnation? It's the things what you require and need. Okay?
You mean at this time, or when the study is conducted for designation?
Okay, please.
I will make note of that.
Just to summarize, okay, so we know that, because when you have condemnation, there are some issues by neighbors and any property owners, so you gotta make sure, you gotta make us to understand that site need to condemnation or eminent domain powers, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Next item.
I'll read it for you, Matt. It's a resolution of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City authorizing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation of conditions on the Central Avenue Block 2901 study area for determination as an area in need of redevelopment, and more specifically as a non-condemnation redevelopment area.
Where is this?
So the Central Avenue, Burger King, behind the Burger King, the lot, right? Parking lot.
There's actually attached map on this one. It's an area that's shown on the map that's roughly at the corner of Central Avenue and Griffith Street. And encompasses, for the majority of it, encompasses a Jersey City parking lot.
So, Council President, could I ask a quick question? I'm going to ask the City Corporation Council and Robert, because those two people know most of that. I own some property in this area. If I participate in voting in the issues, the decision making, is there any conflict of interest involved, anything like that? Abstain, right? Yeah. All right.
An abstention doesn't mean just a vote, right? It means abstaining from the discussion?
Yeah, so don't be discussing it. You're basically, you're now,
Non-participant. I don't want to know. But I'm the
No,
councilman in
see,
this area, and this is a first major redevelopment in the Heights, and the own council person cannot participate in it.
you can't help that you own the Heights.
Don't. No, so commercial.
Love it. Okay.
Go.
Designated, why don't you stop it?
Yeah, the handcuffs that
Well, there are other redevelopment plans in the Heights. It's just, there are others. So, yes.
So now I understand.
Thank you, council. I'm going up to a community meeting now.
No, okay.
Director Flanagan and Deputy Mayor? Director Flanagan and Mayor have 10M as Mary?
Well, we'll do 10U first.
10U first.
Yeah.
Do you want to read it?
Go ahead and read it.
Then you, I got it. It's a resolution authorizing an agreement with the Center for Port Innovation, a project of the Fund of New York for the City of New York, as an extraordinary unspecifiable services without public bidding to provide technical assistance and training for community violence prevention.
Yeah, I'm gonna cue to Vivian so she can explain this before I do my other stuff.
Okay.
So,
Council members, I just want to state for the record that this machine will not record tonight's events. It stopped 3 times for some reason. I'll have it diagnosed. It'll be our record of for the evening.
Okay.
Can't turn it on every 5 minutes and catch snippets.
this is a proposal from the Center for Court Innovation, which is a nationally and internationally recognized organization that works with judiciary, community groups, and others to design anti-violence prevention, services for reentry and community court, youth court, and they really were created as a way to develop new thinking about how to improve our criminal justice system, and now they've moved into the pre-phase. They are actually our partners who helped us develop the Jersey City Youth Council, which is the second youth court in the state, and they are also retained by the Federal Department of Justice, the Bureau of Judicial Affairs, to provide all of the technical assistance nationally for community courts. Working with the health department over the last year, Stacy and her team have been looking at ways to really address violence as a public health crisis. This does not supplant efforts done with the police department, but are actually meant to be complementary. So over the past year, programs that range from the new police chaplaincy program to the Mind, Body, Spirit, and public health initiatives located at public housing projects, working with young people. These have all been efforts to improve the way the city delivers anti-violence programming with a public health perspective. But we're at a juncture right now where we really need to do the type of intense community assessment to develop long-standing projects beyond the pilot phase. And we felt that the Center for Court Innovation, given its experience nationally, its work in New York, where it actually implements programs, its collaborative nature here with our court system on 2 projects, that they were very well positioned to provide that type of technical assistance so that we can roll out a permanent program focused on anti-violence. So if you have questions, please ask.
Yeah, so this isn't new money, this was money that was designated in the budget, so it's not in addition to what's already in our budget. And starting now will just enable us to use some of the funds this year to move forward, and then you'll see a portion of this in the 2018 budget. So we wanted to get it on your plate now so that we can get the ball rolling. We've met several times. They're really the only group in town, like the memo says, that does this work from a cure violence perspective, from a participatory community base, and we've been seeking ways to engage our community and do some training and needs assessment along this line of work, and we just think it's a value added for us to get this kind of support.
Questions for Council? Councilman Gaddison?
I know, beginning page, we talked about this like back in March. But also, you went out for grant funding. Are we expected to see?
We unfortunately did not get the federal minority health grant that we went out for, nor the Robert Wood Johnson. We do have some additional grant proposals out, including one to Bloomberg Philanthropies as part of its Mayor's Challenge. So from a grants perspective, we have not yet been able to secure an additional grant. Please note that those are highly competitive national grants. And we're losing out to cities of much greater size.
And then we're still waiting to hear from the American Public Health Association
and Aetna.
And the Aetna Foundation on some funding that is for the healthiest town and cities. So we're one of the finalists. The next round of finalists, which would put us in the top 10, come out any day now. We think it's promising because we were invited to their last meeting of finalists, and so that's a little bit of added funding. I think what we continue to do in our work, in our department, is looking when people leave. So just Wednesday, someone's retiring in February. We know in February that funding can go to maybe more programmatic planning instead of more clerical work.
So this, so this technical assistance is for the work down in Booker T, Marion, and now in Triangle Park.
Well, it's taking some of,
It's not direct services.
No.
this
No.
is technical assistance that would allow us, so a little bit more broader, so the work that's going on in Booker T is funded by the health department through the Municipal Alliance, which is also on this agenda next. And the Triangle Park and the work going on in Marion are funded by the freeholders, Hudson County Board of Chosen Freeholders. And through the work with the technical assistance providers, we'll be able to do some research and some needs assessment overview of what additional type of programming we would need so that we're more prepared in 2018 to give mini grants to those qualified agencies. So it's a little bit of capacity building, research and support so that we can come up with a strong RFP and at the same time support sort of a more framework approach to this so that we know what's working in our community by taking some things that have been going on in Chicago, which, you know, kind of stopped working because they didn't take a look at what was going on neighborhood by neighborhood. Or taking a look at what's going on in Queensbridge housing versus what's going on in Marion would enable us to kind of be a little bit more progressive in our approach.
I hope this is just a produce another, paper in the city hall, to come up with some action plans for the future.
Yeah, no, and we can present them. We were trying to get them here today, but just with the holiday, we couldn't really connect. But we can, when we get started, we can do a presentation.
Maybe we'll do some presentation for
Yeah.
this council, right?
Absolutely, and it is going to be a public process, so there will be a lot of public engagement in the work, and that's why Center for Court Innovation was such an attractive organization, because they have both the research and the implementation piece.
Yeah. When you charge $140,000, we know it's a holiday, they should show to this council, make some presentation.
No, I was trying to get a hold of them. I wasn't able to get a hold of them on Wednesday when we had completed a lot of the process. So it's my fault, not theirs.
All right, okay.
Well, where's it coming out of? The money?
This is coming out of my consultant line, which is where we put all the anti-violence money because we had been working on this for quite some time.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Ten, what do you want to go, V or M?
Yeah, I can do M because that's.
Okay, 10M. M is in Mary.
And that's just
Resolution authorizing the city of Jersey City to accept a humongous gift from the 14th Street Garden Center.
We just wanted it on record. So we received a gift.
It's humongous. Tell them how humongous it is.
It's just a few dollars, right? It's just like $25, $50. We just want it on record because it's starting down a path of their interest in working with the garden behind the Collier Center. And so we're hoping that'll increase over time. I don't want to, get any problem.
Cracks in the plan.
Yeah. 10V is what I mentioned earlier. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City Department of Health and Human Services to submit a strategic plan for the current grant year for the Jersey City Municipal Alliance. We came to you in June with this. There were some things that the state wanted us to improve on, and that was expanding our board. We've since expanded our board and had to resubmit a strategic plan to the county. So this plan is due to the county, which identifies all of the agencies that are currently funded through the Municipal Alliance, which is our drug prevention programming through the health department.
Any questions on this? Thank you.
Next victim is,
Steve Miller.
you know what, you can take Steve left, he's gonna stay here all night anyway.
Okay. Arjun? Arjun is 10Z.
Arjun, how do you spell your name?
A-R-J-U-N.
Last name?
That's Janakiram, Janakiram, as in Mary.
K-A-R-I-M.
A-M.
A-N?
A-M.
Got it. Janet Karam.
Yes.
So resolution awarding professional services agreement with Langdon Engineering and Environmental Services for environmental engineering services related to geotechnical investigation for green infrastructure.
So this is a resolution which will allow us to sign an agreement with this engineering firm to investigate some sites identified previously by the city in the Urban Environment Green Infrastructure Design Plan. That was a resiliency document that the city contracted with Mazer to develop. It identified a number of ways to approach green infrastructure and some preliminary sites. The soil investigation of these sites will allow us to identify which are actually appropriate for a green infrastructure installation. If the soil is not appropriate, then there's no point in pursuing GI further at that location. So this essentially allows us to narrow down those sites and pick the best candidates.
Okay, any questions for Arjun?
Office of Innovation.
Any other questions?
Mr. Platter.
All right, Arjun, thank you.
Thank you.
We have Joe Cunha. Hi, Joe. Good job. 10Q.
You're welcome.
City Council.
10Q is a resolution authorizing the award of contract to Aurora Environmental Inc. for the storage tank removal on the PJP check cashing site, project number 12009. What number is it? Department of Administration, Division of Engineering, etc.
You may recall I brought this up at the last meeting when we discussed the payment for the, or the resolution approving the payment for a settlement of relocation services for one of the businesses at the strip mall associated with the PJP landfill site, called the check cashing site to be more appropriate to what it was actually used as, although there was a gas station and also a tire. Yes, yes. So bottom line, we were out to bid at that time. We've since received bids, and the lowest responsible bidder was found to be Aurora Environmental Inc. They will be performing the work required to remove a former diesel, a former gas, saline, a former kerosene, and a former heating oil tank, 4 total fuel tanks, and attempt to delineate the limits of contamination within that site. Again, as I also alluded to last time, this contract is mainly concerned with the removal of the tanks themselves and with the side sampling and beneath sampling required at the time of removal of those tanks. At that time, we will then be able to go back to the environmental drawing board, if you will, and determine the next phase, which would be the rest of the cleanup required in accordance with the NJDEP. We will not know what that extent is until we complete this project, run our samples, and again, come up with the next phase and formulate that, at which point I will come before you for an award of. Specifically with this property, which is the front section of the landfill, this piece was condemned. As part of that, the city settled a certain fee. It was agreed upon, and furtherance or completely in accordance with the law, and placed in, or a portion of it was placed in escrow for this specific work. And I'm glad you touched on that, because this, although it's being funded up front through my, you approved it, my capital budget, it will be reimbursed via the money that is in escrow. Not only the removal of the tanks, but also the contamination remediation required, so that we can bring this back to a viable site and get it off of the Superfund list, which is the national priority list, which we do not want to be on. We may. We might find a few of them. We know, we did some preliminary borings. We know we have some migrations on the site. It's just a matter of how far they've migrated and what the DP is going to require. They may come back and say we can cap it and use it as a capped paved area, but it all remains to be seen based on approval.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
That was it for Joe?
And, stick around, though.
Ben Delisle.
I'll get a few others that I might chime in.
Ben here? Yep. Are you here to present?
Not to present. Gene can introduce, but Jay Wilbur from the UAB can present the 10 minutes.
Okay,
He's going to interact with them so they can better able to present them.
okay,
I'm going to answer any questions you may have.
I see, okay.
One house.
This is 3N.
Yeah, those that are last are first. 3N is the ordinance, council members, that we provided to you everything except the ordinance which we delivered on a separate cover tonight. It's an ordinance, the municipal council adopting amendments to the Grand Jersey redevelopment plan to create a park zone and revise other general design, development, and resiliency standards of the plan.
So, my name is Gene Paolino from Genova Burns. I'm representing, I guess, the developer who's seeking the plan amendments here. Although the discussions have been extensive with the Planning Division, the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency, the Jersey City Municipal Utilities Authority, and any other relevant people, including a number of community groups, at least 4. Jay Valgore of Studio V, who's the architect and the developer of the plan, is here to go through it relatively quickly. So I just cede to him. Jay, why don't you take over?
So I'm Jay Valgore. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, as well as a certified planner. It's a pleasure.
Jay, would you kindly, is it just J-A-Y?
Yes.
And
Valgore is V like Victor, A-L-G-O-R-A.
okay,
And
I've gotten that if you repeated it, but thank you.
Sure. And I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey and a certified planner, but more importantly, I've had the pleasure of presenting to this council before and the opportunity to work on several projects in Jersey City. We do a great deal of projects on large, complex sites that involve remediation and resiliency. These are big themes of our work, and we're proud of how we try to work with developers to create communities and create outstanding developments. So just to show you briefly, we've shown this to many council members before. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry we're working with it. Here's the site. So the redevelopment plan, you can see is the site is actually outlined in white, and it is next to Liberty Harbor, and it is adjacent to the highway, and it's a very complex, interesting site at the head of Mill Creek. And if we kind of zoom in on it, you can see the full confines of the site, and we're here just to talk to you about a redevelopment plan amendment, and of course we've been working with many members of the council and the city for some time in order to create really an outstanding development. So the challenges of this site are considerable. The site today is polluted. It's a site that has suffered from a combined sewer outfall, and so there is, tremendous degradation to the site. It's not a pretty site today. It's backed up to the highway. It has, chain link fences with razor wire. It has pollution, but more than that, the site is also contaminated. It's currently the only designated brownfield development area in Jersey City. It's got a lot of hydrocarbons, heavy metals, chromium, PCBs, chlorinated solvents. These are sites that we deal with a lot, so extensive work. A very large professional team has looked at this. It's an important site, and we feel an opportunity to really solve, if you will, a problem for Jersey City, and maybe address many issues that are important to the community, including improving resiliency, improving contaminated sites. So these are some of the things we're facing. Approximately 15% of the Jersey City population resides within the Mill Creek drainage basin. So long story short, the old Mill Creek, the old Morris Canal that came through here, actually contains a lot of the stormwater of the city, so that's one of the problems. It's on its way to the sewage treatment plant over there. And so when a storm event occurs, it dumps raw sewage into this location. As a matter of fact, that happens several times every month. I deal with CSOs all the time. Sometimes I call this one, not to exaggerate, the mother of all CSOs. This is a bad one. And actually, it will actually do a great deal to help Jersey City to address this one. In addition, resiliency is extremely important to this area, to this ward. This is a map. Our site is outlined in red, and you can see how tremendous amounts of water and flooding come into the Lafayette district, come across the highway. So this is a map of what actually occurred during Sandy. What's interesting is when we do our project, we're looking at taking dramatic changes to affect resiliency, including lifting the whole site up very considerably by dozens of feet And this shows what would happen afterwards. We can't solve all the resiliency problems for Jersey City, but this is a key project. Again, I want to show you the before and after. The before is here, which shows the infiltration of water into the surrounding neighborhood, including residential neighborhoods in Lafayette, Communipaw. And then here, by lifting and raising the average grade, an average of over 10 feet, and creating a new tidal marsh, rain garden, and wetlands, we could actually really kind of create a berm and protect that neighborhood and create a public park. So there's a lot of good stuff that could come out of this project, even by the standards of the usual waterfront projects we do. Land ownership is very unusual in this neighborhood. It's very gerrymandered all over. The vast majority of the site is controlled by the developer, and some of it is controlled by the city, but it's kind of this crazy mishmash puzzle. And so what we're proposing is rationalizing that so we can create real public spaces, a real park. So for example, you see these odd little triangular shapes and so forth here, which are owned by the developer, but he would give some of that back. We rationalize these shapes and so forth, as you'll see in the plans that follow. The proposed amendments, we worked very, very closely with city planning and had a lot of positive impact, as well as I'm going to show you later. Worked with communities, done lots of outreach, done more outreach on this project than I've done on almost any project. So we want to provide a full range of infrastructure, including environmental remediation, including improvements to the combined sewer outfall that'll separate that, and that'll actually make that function better, and to create flood control and mitigation measures. And so this is actually a big part of the project. The redevelopment area district, we want to reconfigure the parks district to improve road networks, to increase pedestrian connections, to expand the park area, and to create a nice transition to Liberty State Park. This shows light rail crossings, and we want to create crossings at the light rail in order to ease traffic and provide safer crossings for pedestrians and cyclists. And then parks, really important, we want to create public improvements. We're looking at a 2.5 acre Crescent Park. That'll be a city park, a public park, which you can see here in section A. And so we've kind of rationalized that shape and created a beautiful park that looks towards the water, looks towards the skyline. We think it'll be really nice, and created connections to all of that, creating bike paths, pedestrian connections, vehicular connections, and so forth. We work closely with the city to develop really high-quality thoroughfare design standards. So as part of the redevelopment amendment, we want to create beautiful streets, safe streets, bike lanes, appropriate car lanes, outdoor areas, street trees. This has been gone through in enormous detail. That's just an illustrative example of one. The park itself, we brought on MBBA, Michael Van Valkenburg Associates, is one of the premier park designers in the United States. They did the entire Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is celebrated as one of the great first century parks in New York City. They worked with us to design the Crescent Park. So this park here, which has these water features, these hills, this greenery, we worked closely with them to develop that whole thing. The summary of the major amendments, it goes into great detail, but essentially objectives to improve flood resiliency, to create connections to the surrounding area. General administrative requirements, we did a redevelopment agreement, which JCRA is going to be required for all development applications. General development and design requirements, we incorporated sustainable and resilient features. Land use requirements, we created a parks district. The park is a big part of it. Open space plan. Conformity with the Hudson River Walkway and addition to the open space plan. Utility and infrastructure, we talked about a little bit. We're going to have long-term utility and infrastructure plans, and there's major work that we've been doing with the JCMUA and with city engineering, so that's very far along. And then, so these are some of the issues with which we're dealing. So community engagement has been important to me. I personally, as the principal of the firm, have gone out to really every community around us. Now, we're kind of on the edge of nowhere over here. Don't get me wrong. Every part of the city is important. We feel like we're kind of next to the highway on this polluted site, but we went to everybody. Most importantly, we went to Bergen, Lafayette, Communipaw, because I think they're affected a great deal. This is the ward in which it's in. And we had very positive feedback from all these diverse communities that have very diverse points of view. We went to Liberty State Park. They're a different group, but we wanted to create connections with them and Friends of Liberty State Park. We went to Van Vorst Park, and we went to Paulus Hook. So we really went to, and we went to most of the groups at least twice. Actually, I think we went to every single group at least twice. We did. Okay. I went there, so I'm glad to respond to questions about that. Comparison. This is the current zoning versus the proposed block layout. And so this shows on the left is the existing redevelopment plan. On the right just shows the vehicular pathways and connections and how we've done that. And we did this in conjunction closely with city planning. This shows the current zoning versus the proposed zoning. The equal built area of the project is the same, really, maybe just a hair less. It has much less coverage, meaning the buildings cover less area, and it has 33% more open space. So this was important to us too, in order to make these connections. So I'm nearly done. This is the site as it exists today. This is how we propose it, with the parks and with the connections. This is the site as it exists today looking back. And this is how we propose it. And that's it. If we could bring the lights up, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right, everyone, like us. TV time is over.
The council president had to step out, so does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, so what we'll do is let's get someone else to bat, and
Yeah,
when
just
Rolando
stick
gets,
around.
just hang out
I'll be here.
for Rolando to come back, and let's move on to the next one. We have luck of the draw, Ben Delisle, which we just had. Tanya from planning. This is for Journal Square, 2060.
And that does not have an agenda number, but I handed it out to everyone before.
So this is an ordinance.
It's going to be P, ordinance 174. What is it? And 3P 174.
It's the one that doesn't have a header at the top that I handed out to everyone. It's not on ordinance paper.
This says,
Yes, that one.
What is one of these 3Ps?
It's going to be 3P, and the other one about the snow is going to be 30173. Send it back to 0. I'm just shutting it off.
so Council President, we have the next guys up to bat, but we understand you might want to ask questions about this redevelopment plan?
Just,
So
it
there's
was brought to my attention that
Take it down, it looks fine.
presentations to the community groups, that they expected some amendments to be made and then have that presented back to them or shared with them. I'm not entirely certain. I will direct you to my council aide Marlene, who can connect you with some of the folks there who expressed their, okay? Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. So we're moving on to this.
Moving on.
This is the ordinance from planning.
Which is
It
it,
doesn't,
Tanya?
This is not on the agenda. It was a mishap with regard to kind of, it fell off the agenda processing line, and we have Tanya here. Tanya, do you want to show us?
All right, this is 3P 17174, an ordinance of the municipal council of the city of Jersey City, adopting an amendment to the Journal Square 2016 redevelopment plan to amend bonus standards for the construction and extension of Central Avenue and Homestead Place.
Actually, everything is pretty much in the title. This is in order to provide, developer bonuses to construct the Central Ave extension and to construct the Homestead pedestrian access way. So currently, right now, as most people know, Central Ave kind of dies off at Hoboken, and we now have Cook Street, and then it goes back up to Central Ave after Newark Avenue. This would basically get rid of Cook Street and correct that, and to make the clear connection of Central Avenue between Newark Avenue and pretty much the Heights. That is also actually in the Journal Square circulation right-of-way map that we've kind of always had. So it's always been the intention to have this right-of-way corrected. And so what it does is it gives all of the lots that are adjacent to the new extension the ability to build according to Zone 3. So it's upzoning right now. Currently, they're all in Zone 4. And the homestead, very similar, except that it would be a pedestrian-only access, and that's to connect Newark Avenue to Pavonia. Homestead exists now, but it only exists as a very small street that I don't think many people even recognize as a street. And it would also, pretty much if you're looking straight down at the homestead, you see the entrance to Journal Squared. So this would basically connect Newark Avenue to that entrance to the path. And that the language for the bonus for building this is essentially the same as it is with Central Avenue, and that's that they can build to a Zone 3 standard instead of the Zone 4.
Yes. Is that okay?
Councilman.
Yeah. I have to bring up the issue to a planning in a department because I'm not happy with a certain issue to your department with what's going on. The Journal Square 2060 plan, there's nothing wrong with that when you look at itself. But the impact of a 2060 plan, surrounding area is a very, very negative impact they bring up now. Let's say one, because you guys talk about the redevelopment plan in this area, but also after finish the project, the people moving have some jobs in New York City area, as you know. But people live there, when they calculated the commute time, some people live in downtown Manhattan, some people live in midtown Manhattan. When people work the midtown Manhattan, they more like to use the 119 bus, right? And the people want to go to downtown Manhattan, they use more pass train. Current time is a mass transportation infrastructure in that area, provide the service in that area, is actually up to here. So when we bring up the 190 buses in Central Avenue, usually number one complaint is that bus not show up on time. Actually, we fight for that with usual transit, and that they improve some. But now, today's major complaint is that when that bus, 190 bus arrive, or Palisade Avenue, the bus is packed. So when we come to Central Avenue, most place in Central Avenue, after probably past the Bower Street, bus is not stopped, the bus stop, they just go to the Hoboken. So now, any plans you come up with that, without any mass improvement plan for mass transportation, you guys should not bring up the table. You know why? They have one rule. If you mess, you should be clean. Even the Heights, local block association, even myself, we lobbied to New Jersey Trans and DOT, and even though we increased some frequency of that 119, but we didn't see any difference, any improvement because of that Journal Square improvement without mass transportation plan. So you guys talk all those fancy things, create more fancy streets and so on, so more people want to come up that area, and they want to go work in New York City, Midtown or downtown, and our current infrastructure, especially mass transportation, is not there to serve those people. But when I see that any plans you guys present to this council without transportation plan, you're killing us, really.
I mean, the only response that I can have to that is that.
Let me make sure.
Responding.
Oh, okay. So go ahead.
Within New Jersey, mass transit is owned by different entities. So you've got bus, that's New Jersey Transit, and PATH, that's the Port Authority, and neither of which we have any control over as a city or as a planning agency. They have their own planning departments themselves.
Thank you very much. That's why I'm waiting for your answer. That's why the developer, your planning department should ask the developer, they should present to the city council and this city how they want to improve transportation, how they provide the transportation service to people who live there.
As a transit study, are you saying? Or?
No. Improve the plan. How they're going to provide a transportation service to their tenant in their building.
From my understanding, working with PATH to get that done is almost impossible. I've had multiple applicants try to work with Path to create new stops or.
They should be allowed to state DOT will use your transit. They should come up with some kind of plan to us, to show to us, we're gonna build a 50th Street building with this kind of improved plan for the mass transportation.
Right. I mean, what I can say too is that the idea is that people wouldn't just be commuting, that people would be working and living in Journal Square. So it would be more of a work, live, play, everybody there kind of deal instead of just everybody commuting into the city and living in Jersey City.
Yeah, you wish it, right? But actually it's not. Because if we look at the past train, the years ago, 6 o'clock in the morning was empty, was it? But today, because not only Journal Square area, Harrison, Kearney, and the Newark. So when the past train come to the Journal Square area, already packed. When you come down Grove Street, not even hard to get in now. We have same problem is at 190. They come from start from the Bayonne, you know. Yep. So Bayonne is a lot of improvement going on and a lot of new buildings. So already, buses are packed inside of Bayonne. So that developer should come up to this council. Yes, we're gonna work with the New Jersey Transit. Instead of 190 bus leave the Bayonne, we're gonna provide at least a 6 bus starting Journal Square.
Does the Central Ave bus still run? Was it the 89, was it? That,
119.
119? I know that there was a bus that ran specifically on Central Ave, and about 7 years ago it stopped.
Yeah, there was a problem, so we actually, as an organization, when I was president at SID, we lied to New Jersey Transit, DOT, we able to bring up the commuter bus to our area, you know, with other community groups.
Right.
So we are lucky to have it now. We has a problem is that we do all the work, the end of the benefit who get, people live in Journal Square.
Right.
And the people who bring up the line into that area, we height people get suffering.
Okay, I'm sorry. Councilman Gatson and Bojano.
For the Central Avenue extension, is it, are the owners of these properties gonna have to, they're gonna be bought out in order for this extension to occur?
Right now there's also a project going on with the county to build the new courthouse there. So a lot of that land.
Being built like where?
Between Oakland, Cook Street, Hoboken Avenue.
And right?
I can address
the
that.
new county buildings here, right?
Correct. So if you,
All these spots, like the church, that temple, all that stuff.
the temple's not being affected whatsoever. If they choose to redevelop, they can. My client's properties are in the yellow, that are in the diagram, the tax map that you're looking at, that's attached to the ordinance. He owns those already. So there's no displacement, no condemnation. My client over the last 2+ years has gone out and assembled these properties. So in hopes that you know, these amendments would be passed so he can work with the city to extend that. So what you see in the maroon kind of orange, that would be the Central Avenue extension. Those properties have been acquired already by the county. The county has been working on acquiring those over the last few years for the courthouse and for the extension of Central Avenue.
See, no, you mentioned the extension of Central Avenue bus line. You know what that means?
No, I didn't say that.
Bus line.
Central
Avenue that they go to.
Central
right?
Avenue, which I would assume would help a connection if they're, you know, a bus line to go from Journal Square directly up to the Heights.
But this is just a walkway.
No, that's, Central Avenue would be vehicular extension. The Homestead extension would be pedestrian, yes.
How about the bus line? How are they gonna be?
I can't answer as to the bus line.
Chuck, hold on. First of all, we got almost 100 people, I think, at the Hilltop, and this was presented. The people were all for it, all right? The other thing is, the problem is the Port of Authority, because we do not have any senators, congressmen, mayors, assemblymen who have the guts to stand up and tell the Port of Authority to do something. It's really ridiculous. I met with the Port Authority a couple times, they yes you to death. All they care about is New York City. And until our people here in Jersey City open their damn mouths, nothing's gonna change.
Right, and those aren't issues that I can address, but I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
walk you through this, maybe the history of this. I've met with a number of councilmen here. I did not get an opportunity to meet with you, Councilman Gatson, on this, but that the Central Avenue extension, which is envisioned in Journal Square redevelopment plan, would be a vehicular and pedestrian extension from Newark Avenue through to Hoboken. Now, I've spoken with people at the county. They are getting teed up to do this. And the idea here would be that the developer of those two lots would then incur the costs of making all the improvements of the Central Avenue extension. So that's something where a governmental body is not responsible for it, but the developer would have to do that in order to have Zone 3 zoning instead of Zone 4. And also, any development under the Homestead extension or the Central Avenue extension would be subject to a redevelopment agreement with the JCRA. So no project would proceed to the planning board until it had the blessing of the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency. Because there would be a lot of moving parts. This would allow this to happen. It would allow a developer to initiate the improvement of the Central Avenue extension in concert with the Hudson County government, and it would allow. What would be?
We sold a large part of that. We sold parcels to the county.
Yeah, it would be more like a...
Cook Street goes away?
Yes.
Yeah, this is all part of the bigger picture with the new courthouse. Yeah, Cook Street goes away for the new courthouse. Then you have the Central Avenue extension taking you through. And then on the other one, the Homestead, there would be no acquisition of any property. My client has already gone out and assembled this so that he could create the pedestrian connection from Journal Square, hopefully all the way out to Newark Avenue. And that the vision there is the one of the last, well, the rendering at the end of what I handed out would be Stone Street downtown in Manhattan, where it turns into a pedestrian. Well, it would be permanently a pedestrian walkway, not vehicular.
But these shops don't currently exist.
No, but they would all be built as part of any development. That you'd have these smaller shops, and it breaks up those big blocks of Cottage and Pavonia, and then it creates a connection between Newark and Pavonia.
Yes, so my concern is the Central Avenue extension, not whole. The Central Avenue bus line is the extension. You know what I'm saying? So two different things. So then...
She has nothing to do with the bus.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I just want to make sure, when you say Central Avenue extension can be, in the future, or short period after develop the study, can be extension Central Avenue bus. Because already, we have a very long line from the study from the Bay to come down to New York City, but more likely, this area is improvement plans. It's a great plans. I can see that, but the plan should come out with some kind of improvement plan for the mass transportation.
And obviously, we could work with planning and DOT. That would benefit my client to have the circulation better. But we don't have control over that. But this is something that will assist that. It's more of a public-private collaboration that will make these connections. Without a public-private collaboration like this, you'd be condemning property. You're not going to do that. This is something where we can dedicate property to make it happen.
When you build up a small house, two-family house, when you bring up the bricks in the drop at the site, that person have to hire the police officer. Try to bring up the public safety issue, traffic issue. And if you guys develop or build up some major improvement in that area, should we come up plan to how we're going to improve the mass transportation systems?
Okay.
It's going to be a short detour
No, I'm talking about just this example. So if we just build up without a mass transportation improvement plan, it's going to be a very negative impact in the Heights area.
How, the opening of Central Avenue is going to have
No,
negative impact?
Now we have a different governor, so maybe Jersey City can...
Right. But this, like I said, this would be subject to a redevelopment agreement with the JCRA. So there would be a lot of things that will be taken or into consideration and put into that agreement. That's one of the major items of this. It allows us to start the process, to address issues like you're bringing up. It would allow us to, address things that maybe we're not talking about tonight, but it would all be part of a redevelopers agreement that the city, the JCRA, the county would be part of to make this happen.
I'm sorry, I might have missed it, stepping out and so forth, but, so, in exchange for building these things, there's, bonus for height and density, is that?
It would be from zone 4 to zone 3 within the plan, so that.
What's the exchange?
That would be like, on certain ones, it would go, the maximum would be like 12 stories to 25 stories. But again, I say that because it's all subject to a redevelopers agreement with the JCRA. So those aren't, the zoning will provide it, but they're not as a right. It's all subject to sitting down with the city, with planning, and the JCRA and finding out what works. And
So you get a bonus for building the pedestrian path and the Central Avenue extension.
Right, all the Central Avenue improvements from Pavonia to Newark, and then on the homestead, you're dedicating land to make it happen, and then you are building all of that. The walkway, which would be open to the public access way through a public easement, maintained by the developer, but open to the public all the time, so that.
Did you have a dollar valuation for this?
We did have yeah, absolutely. We shared that with the JCRA and planning. I know. So
I grew up in the neighborhood. Homestead, is that the little street between Newark and Livonia?
Right. So Homestead is next to McLaughlin Funeral's home parking lot, right? Homestead Place.
Can't even
So
tell it's a street.
that's a public street, but that would be improved as part of this. And then when you continue north, you'd go from Van Ripen to Cottage. You'd have the walkway, and the walkway is created there from the dedication of private property that my client currently owns. So you're.
So he owns these two and he owns the other.
Yes. Which one?
Homestead.
He owns property for the homestead.
He owns,
Like all this?
yeah, Homestead Place. He doesn't own these properties, but Homestead Place exists.
Yeah.
Right, so he'll improve that. As part of the first phase, that would be improved. And then he owns here, here, actually here, and here, and then here. This is city owned. So that's subject to, what the city wants to do. My client owns here.
It's still homestead, but this is a property, right?
That would be part of the property that my client owns.
I'm sorry. I can't even see.
It's block.
2019, when you say it here?
It's block 7903, lot 3839. Now, if you look closely, you'll see in lot 39, that pink strip is part of lot 39. So that walkway will be created out of property that my client owns. And then when you go further north, lot 19, that pedestrian strip will be created out of property that my client already owns. Yes, he owns it. So that's what's the good thing about one of I think the benefits is it could be created now out of property that he owns. And we can create this extension, which was envisioned already by the plan.
And the bonus is that he can build.
Yeah, he would build higher and with that more units, but that's all subject to an agreement with the city, reviewing costs so that everything makes sense. So.
Yeah, so how's the building, how they amended it, change? So you say 12 straight to 24?
Depends on a couple things, the lot size.
Yeah, there's a number of things. Yeah, depending on the lot size, the consolidation, it could be up to 25. But it's
Currently it's at 12.
12.
And if after amended, we can go up to 25.
Correct. But subject to a redeveloper's agreement with the agency. So if the agency says that, you know, they're gonna look more even, you know, at the cost of everything and have a balancing. So it's,
See, so that's what I'm saying. It's amended is one thing, but after amended the program and the redevelopment plan, the negative impact to come to the heights is serious, especially mass transportation. That's why I'm trying with the issue, you know. And the project itself is a beautiful project, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean that when they amend the heights to 12 to 25, the extra 30 more street and the bring up the peoples in that area, they're going to be added to heights area, that especially committed to the New York City. Huge problem we're going to bring up to us.
well, I think the idea here is these are
So
public
if you
improvements.
compare, like other project in this area, if your project comes with like a shuttle bus provide to your area to 42nd Street, the shuttle bus, well, do something, come up plan to something make it easier that the current issues or we face. Not just to build, we're going to build a 12 to 25, just don't say that, because why? The jungle scale is a center of the transportation area, so they have people have a room to sit down, cities are available, but when they left that area, we got nothing. And the people waiting for 7 o'clock bus, because the bus is full, they're just passing by. You know, think about it, you know, they missed the work. They're late to work. So come up, not only plan to build, change to 12 to 25 Street, come up plan how we're going to provide the transportation to residents in that area. That's what we're supposed to do.
And that, Councilman, would be something that could be reviewed as part of a redeveloper's agreement with the agency. That's not necessarily something you would see in a zoning.
Okay.
I think that's a question for other
decision makers. The reason I brought the issue that the planning department to be considered those issues, okay? So when the next time was come more and the plans in the table, I'm going to ask you those questions. So don't just say, oh, that's not our issue. No, don't do that, okay? All right, that's it.
Chuck, how high was the proposals when we had the Hilltop meeting? I don't remember 25 stories.
Well, I think it ranged from like
14 up to 20, I think. So it's not a you know a final product yet. It's still kind of in flux. This would allow us to start those discussions further.
And also, did you tell that those kind of negative impact to height to amend this plan? Do you notice like a heights organization? Like the Riverview Washington Park, PS 20 School Block Association.
What's that?
What are you talking about?
He's asking if you've consulted Heights organizations.
The only one that would be immediately impacted would be Sergeant Anthony, right? But
Yeah,
Hilltop is right there.
Yeah, more like the Riverview
Hilltop.
Washington Park.
He's consulted with Hilltop.
And New Journal Square. The New Journal Square. New Journal Square sent letters of support.
Yeah, but how about the height?
We did not consult with anybody in the Heights.
Okay, then I'll spread the word, you know, to let them somewhere. But instead of I do that, Tanya, maybe you can contact with them to show up. If we amend this plan, what kind of pro and con in the Heights area, impact-wise, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I spoke to Kern Weissman when it first was on a planning board, but I absolutely can reach out to them again.
Yes, please.
I think they
And
saw
then
Central
when they-
Avenue and immediately
Yes,
responded
Central
to
Avenue
it.
also not included because.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The mayor did, and we're good to delay it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I thought, okay.
Okay. Kate, you're up. Kate Lawrence. Kate has 3J and 3K. Council members. Kate Lawrence from planning.
first one
Hello
is
again, Kate, 3J and 3K. 3J is an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 321, Trees of the Jersey City Code, repealing sections 1 through 8 in its entirety and adopting a new version.
Correct. So both of the ordinances that I'm going to talk about have been revised with the input of the Division of Parks and Forestry, as well as Planning, and the input of the Environmental Commission, as well as the Parks Coalition of Jersey City. So we have received input from a number of different parties regarding these ordinances to try to make them stronger and protect our trees and make sure that we can try to put more trees within the city of Jersey City, because the city has many less trees than other comparable cities, and it is an issue that comes up again and again. So the first one, 321, is the tree chapter of the ordinance, and it, even though it says here that it's been repealed in its entirety, that's correct, but much of the language and the intent of the original ordinance has still been retained. It's just been reorganized so much that it made sense to just repeal it in entirety. And the reason why it was reorganized is because the previous ordinance was quite confusing. And I read it many times. So this should be much clearer, make much more sense to people who are trying to understand how trees are protected within the city, and remove some gray areas of confusion. Some of the major additions are that now we have definitions within the ordinance so that it's clearer as to what is being spoken about. And then there is a purpose that has been added to 321. There have been some prohibited activities added, including if you cut or remove more than 20% of a tree's canopy, that's now prohibited, because that amounts to basically killing the tree. And then for acts requiring a permit, more acts now require a permit, including if you are constructing or doing any construction work within 15 feet of a city tree. So as to protect them, they would have to get a permit through DPW, the Division of Parks and Forestry. There's also now a provision that if you are removing a tree, you have to, in addition to getting a permit from the city, you have to make a payment to the city equivalent to the value of the tree as determined annually by the Division of Parks and Forestry. So basically, I'm sorry?
Cut a tree down on the sidewalk in front of my house. I have to make a payment to the forestry department?
We're talking about public trees now, not private trees. This is a public tree. So if it is in the sidewalk, first of all, it's owned by the city of Jersey City. It's not owned by the property owner. And if they wanted to cut it down, they currently have to get a permit anyway. So that hasn't changed. You still need to go through the permitting process, but now you have to pay as well. And the reason why is because in order to replace that tree, it costs the city a significant amount of money. So we're just monetizing that.
Are you measuring the caliper of the tree? I mean, if you have a grand sycamore,
yes,
as opposed to a,
So another item that is changed within this within this ordinance, as well as the other one, is it refers to tree standards, which are being crafted with the Division of Parks and Forestry and Arvista, who's been working on tree issues. And as part of this, this is still in draft form. It will be completed by the time that it comes to second reading, but we're still just establishing a few things. But basically, the process for evaluating the price of a tree is, or the value of a tree, is based on the same valuation method that New York City uses. So it's based on the species and trunk size of the tree.
Can we ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a couple of things.
Chris.
Do we, City of Jersey, we have a special, tree specialist in the working City Hall?
we have a forester.
We had a forester, and we
And
will
they're still
be getting a new forester.
Sorry? I think they left.
They did, but their position is still open, and they will be hiring again shortly.
So now, my concern is that this is what's, because the trees is one of the major the complaining issue by residents of Jersey City Heights, not only just prior to citywide. Number one, originally, years ago, tree planted wrong tree, so they break the sidewalk, and some trees are old, very old, because it's a very danger. But unfortunately, as I know, that we have one tree specialist. Before any tree trim to provide the city of Jersey City, they have to prove that yes, need or not. But unfortunately, the specialist is left in the city of Jersey City, and that's why they all stop the tree trims at this moment.
I don't know if that's completely true, because we only had a forester with the city for 9 months. Before that, we never had a forester.
Well, actually, we did in the Department of Public Works. Rodney Hadley was a forester.
Yes.
Well, we didn't have one for a while.
But the biggest enemy of the trees in Jersey City are PSE&G.
Yeah, I'm about to say that.
Every tree looks like a Y.
Correct.
So now, let me ask this one. So they plant wrong trees now, and because they plant wrong tree, they damage the sidewalks and the.
I'm sorry, who was planting the wrong tree?
The city of Jersey City, years ago.
Oh, in the past.
And the sidewalk. But now, those kind of wrong trees, then how are we going to remove the wrong trees? Even though they are healthy trees, but we want to plant the right, correct trees in the front of the house or sidewalk. Then how we have to do? We just live with the wrong trees with sidewalk?
Trees in front of my house.
When you say wrong tree, you mean because it is causing tripping hazard?
No, the plant the wrong trees means that the trees, all the trees good, but it's not.
Sidewalks erupt.
Yes.
Right, I mean, that is a concern going forward. That's something we're trying to fix by having established planting standards for the way that the tree is planted. It's not always that it's the wrong tree, but it was planted incorrectly, so that didn't have enough room to grow. So there are a lot of trees that would work if they were planted in a better manner. For those trees that are already there, they are serving a purpose. The issue, of course, is to fix the tripping hazard.
We cannot correct the problem. How are we going to correct the problem? How?
We are correcting the problem in time, over time. I know that the Division of Parks and Forestry is working on this continuously. They have been working on this for a while, and looking at trees and evaluating ones that are, yeah.
Let me ask you this. If we pass this, when I replace my sidewalk, I want the city to pay for it, because it's lifted up the sidewalk. Well then, don't tell me I can't cut down, have a tree cut down in front of my house.
And also, the Council Rich Bujan is say right, because, if in some case, one of tree trims, I think the public, when they see the TVs, they will agree with me. Some people wait for 2 years, 3 years, some cases 5 years waiting for the tree trim. And they improve a lot. Some cases 5, 6 months, another 6 months. But
this is not going to change any of that.
Listen to me. When we do that, I support your ordinance. It's a great ordinance, but we should say that owner cannot cut the trees so and so or trims. But if after reach the city hall, if they not provide service certain period of time, then we gotta give the property the right to have tree trims. Some kind of things give to them. Other than that, they cannot wait for dangerous trees for 5 years.
That is a good question for the Division of Parks and Forestry regarding their process. This ordinance doesn't change that, and it won't speed up or slow down the process, except that it does provide, by creating the tree standards, we're providing more information about the best way to go about things and what the process is. As far as, how the Division of Parks and Forestry evaluates tree hazards, that is something that has not been touched with this. This is really about making sure that the trees that exist are protected and that future trees, when planted, are planted correctly. That's in the second ordinance. But as to your point, Mr. Councilman Boggiano, you currently cannot cut down, under the existing ordinance, you cannot cut down the tree in front of your house if it's not on your property. That has not changed. It will not change. It's a city property.
That's the way you're wrong, because this property goes up to the street, all right? The sidewalk's open to everybody.
Public right away.
For public right of way, but the sidewalk belongs to me or to a homeowner.
So
No, it does not. You're required to maintain it.
Maintenance.
You're required to maintain it, but you don't own it.
First of all, the trees, let's say, I'm just using my house as an example, probably 100 years old. So I don't know if the city planted them, and I don't know who planted them. But if I want to get rid of them, I'm going to, because they're ruining my sidewalk. I don't have any intention of getting rid of them.
You could go do that, but you would be breaking current law.
No, I'd go right through forestry, like I had one cut down by forestry a few years ago. And,
Right,
you
which
know,
is exactly what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do, is you're requesting a permit.
has to pay. Enough with this. I mean, forestry, you can't even get forestry to come and do anything. You call them up.
Yeah.
And, we only have 5 people working there. This is a major city with no workers.
Let's buy
That's not her-
let's buy
I know, it has nothing to do with you.
Let's buy
I
silk
just-
trees then.
So, and let me ask the lawyer here. Am I correct in saying that the city owns the tree in front of your house and it's destroying your sidewalk or hits your water line and you have to spend $15,000 to put a new water line? Is the city responsible?
No.
I'm not gonna answer that question because that impacts our litigation strategy and position in cases that deal with that. So I'm not gonna answer that question. It's public forum.
Has sewer problems. Because
Yeah, it's true.
a couple of my neighbors had sewer problems because the tree lines grew into them. Then, as far as I'm concerned, the city's responsible. Enough putting the blame on taxpayers.
So no, this is a very great ordinance. I'm thankful you great job, but I wish to have some kind of cut the trees so and so. If property owner or resident ask the tree trims, if you not provide the 6 months, then property have a right to hire the private company to make tree trims so and so.
You can currently hire your own somebody to do that work, but you have to get a permit. That's the only thing. So basically, the Division of Parks and Forestry has to make sure that you guys are doing it correctly, because if tree work is done by a non-professional, they can kill the tree very easily. And Councilman Boggiano, the intent of making sure that people pay for the removal of the tree is not meant really to be directed towards homeowners who are being impacted negatively by a tree, but it's for developers that remove trees as part of the redevelopment of their project and then don't replace them. So really, there will always be the ability of the Division of Parks and Forestry to make exceptions in the evaluation due to mitigating circumstances.
How many people have cut down trees and put in illegal carports in the city of Jersey City?
Right, that's exactly the issue. It's just meant as a way to further prevent the city from basically losing its trees and not having a way to pay for the replacement of them. But I would like to...
supported by the Parks Coalition and the Environmental Commission?
It is. And the second one is 345, 65, 66, and 70. So this is specifically regarding for developers. And
Landscaping, off-street parking, and loading and bicycle parking.
right, well, actually, yeah, it's buffers, landscaping, and then parking. Just so you know, the parking section is super tiny, and the only thing that's been changed is it removed a section in parking that's dealt with trees and just moved it into the landscaping section. That's all I did, or all that was done in order to change that section. Everything else is completely the same in the parking section. It's just that item 2, which dealt with planting trees in parking lots, is just been moved into the landscaping section. So just to make it clear, because I think that previously developers might not see that and understand that we already had an ordinance related to tree requirements.
Kate, can we plant the trees on the opposite side of the street from utilities? Because
Well, that's the role of making sure that you have a permit and do your planting and notify Division of Parks and Forestry, and hopefully there will be a new forester soon to help with this, is that you basically would just get a final approval to make sure that it's the right site for the trees, and if it's not the right site because of situations like underground utilities or overhead wires.
we have PSE&G making every tree in the city look like a Y.
That is something that we continually will have problems with because they do what they will, and they apparently don't have to answer to us.
Also, this section right here,
Right, we're talking about wires. Basically, we're letting it be known that we do not feel that they should be able to do that without authority, and I think
you're saying in this ordinance that they can't,
right.
They can't do it without you knowing.
Basically, yes. that they have to work with Division of Parks and Forestry.
And if they don't, then they're gonna be fined $100 per tree that they slice?
Yes, and whether, that is, by the way, not different from what it was previously. It's just been moved.
Will there be any notification to companies that do trees
Um,
about this ordinance?
Well, previously that was supposed to be part of the ordinance, and it was never done. And it's also very onerous because there are so many different trees. This is something that's really meant. It's meant for developers. So the idea is that it, as part of the zoning process, if they're coming to planning and they're putting in a project, this ordinance will help the planners because there will be tree standards that will be finalized as part of this, stating, what the appropriate tree is for an appropriate area and what the tree, the tree pit will be. But also, if a tree can't be planted in an area because of a utility, that there's a way to have the developer pay for the cost of the tree so that it can be planted in another area that's more appropriate, basically. So the tree companies they're hired by the developers. There's no reason that I see for communicating with them directly.
So could we go after, like PSC&G, say down the road next year, like we see that a tree is dying and they sliced it the year previous, can we go after them?
That's a great question. Like I said, that part of the ordinance was slightly moved, but it's essentially the same. And I know that when the forester was here, Mr. Metz, he was working on creating a relationship with PSENG and trying to get them to take more responsibility for the work that's done as part of their trees. I don't know all of the intricacies of it. I know that there are some complications because they are a publicly owned utility. But yes, that is the intent, is that we would be able to say, hey, this is our ordinance, you're not following it, you need to follow it. And last year you killed a tree, and if you're not going to properly cut the trees, then at least you should pay us for them. And I think it will give us more teeth in order to resolve those conflicts.
Who handles the enforcement?
The enforcement is just regular channels for enforcement for any code violations. That would be codes.
Any other questions, folks?
So no enforcement.
Well, the regular channels that we use for enforcement.
Why don't we pull this and sit down with a couple of people, Rolando, you want to, a few of us, and talk about this? And have PSENG here.
There's nothing that we can add to make PSENG do more than they're doing. The issue is not our ordinance. The issue is it's PSENG and their relationship with the state. This ordinance will only make it more difficult for them to cause damage to trees, but there's nothing that I'm aware of that we can do rather than creating a better relationship with them and actually, maybe citing them or even taking legal action against them, that would make them act differently. It's nothing to do with the ordinance. This would only help that, because it would actually say you owe this much, rather than having just be a vague, don't mess with our cheese. This has numbers attached to it. So I would highly, I would encourage you to consider passing the ordinance. I think that it's in a really good shape as it is now. I don't think that it could be improved in that way. I really think that the issue is a larger one with PSENG. A lot of other towns have this issue, and I think it's more that they just don't think that they answer to anybody. And if we want to take action on them, it has to be probably from our legal team.
So plan would enforce that, okay? Good luck.
Andrew, you're up. Andrew starts with 3A.
Yeah, he only goes to 3D and then about 7 resolutions or something like that.
Not that many, close. Starting with 3A, which is an ordinance, which is it's a fairly straightforward item. It's an ordinance prohibiting right turns on red at the intersection of Laidlaw Avenue and Central Avenue, which is near the new PS 26 Patricia Noonan School. It would be 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. school days.
It's going to be done. Andrew, do me a favor, can you get it done as fast as possible?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right? Thank you, Andrew. Okay.
Moving on. 3B is, I'm sorry for skipping ahead, but 3B is associated with a resolution that I also have on the agenda. It might make more sense if I could talk about both at the same time. It's 10A. So 10A is a resolution that creates a loading zone on 2nd Street in between Warren and Provost, which is adjacent to a self-storage facility. It's the length of the equivalent of 3 parking spaces. And what we're doing to offset the designation of those 3 spaces as a loading zone is to open up general parking on Warren Street in between 1st and 2nd Street. And to do that, to accomplish that, we need to pass ordinance 3B, which designates street cleaning hours for that section of Warren Street. So, long story short, there's a net gain of 2 general parking spaces in the neighborhood with the passing of these 2 items.
Okay, any questions? No. 3C?
I'll save you breath. It's an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, designating 25 feet on the east side of Palisade Avenue, beginning 35 feet north of Route 139, and designating the east side of Palisade Avenue from Newark Avenue to a point 205 feet north as no parking anytime, and amending section 332-24, parking prohibited certain hours, repealing no parking Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the west side of Palisade Avenue, beginning at the State Highway and extending 100 feet north.
Okay, so there's 3 things here. The important thing to note is the only thing that's changing from the existing conditions is that first item, 35 feet north of 139 on the east side of Palisade Avenue. That's that little section of Palisade Avenue where the DOT kind of restriped Palisade Avenue near 139. All we're doing here is prohibiting parking essentially within a travel lane. The other 2 items noted below are just effectively us cleaning up the code to reflect existing conditions near that item along Palisade Avenue.
Questions?
Could you ask the state, we've asked them, and Joe, Baldwin Avenue is backed up sometimes from 139 all the way to Montgomery Street because that light there lets 3 cars through, 4 cars through. It's every single day. Now, we've asked them, I spoke to Monty, and I don't know, the state just doesn't want to change this. They have to change the timing on it. Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely.
Andrew, we asked that.
I'm sorry, Baldwin Avenue?
Baldwin
Okay.
and the State Highway. The light heading north lasts for about three or four, it's hardly
We're
green.
familiar with that. I've actually specifically told them the improvement that I would like to see there, and they haven't come through with it. We'll follow up with them.
And also Central and Bauer Street traffic lights? They only the green light, only the 3 cars are able to pass in. So that their backup to traffic is about to Central Avenue to all the way down actually New York Avenue.
So if you'll remember with that intersection, we had received a number of complaints that Central Avenue, which is the main line there, wasn't receiving enough time. So what we did was we mimicked the signal timing that was at Central and Center Street at Central and Bowers. Now, giving more time to the main line means less time to the side street, which is Bowers in that case. So what we're doing to combat that entire situation is we're increasing the cycle length along the entire corridor. So right now, the cycle length along all of Central Avenue is 70 seconds. We're going to bump it up to probably 80 or 85 seconds. So we'll be able to give more time to those side streets. Bowers is a very challenging intersection because it's split phase. So there's 2 approaches to Bowers because it's an offset kind of dogleg intersection. So that's why that intersection is challenging. But we have a plan to bump up all of the signals to a longer cycle length, which should help out a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. So like if Central Avenue is 75 cents, Bauer Street at least is 60 seconds, because other than, so only 2 cars, because as you say, from the Bauer Street make a left to Central Avenue south, north and straight, so 3 different directions can move. So they're really serious problem, not only the Congress and Central Avenue, because when you see that Congress and Central Avenue, the Russia town, they shut it back all the way to Palisade Avenue now.
I agree 100%. Both of those intersections have the same issue. They're both offset intersections, and they're going to be, just by nature, they're going to be more challenging than the others, but increasing the cycle length will help there. For
So
both.
you're going to come up some plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, please, good.
Andrew, so I guess the same situation on First and Marin with the light on Second Street. It's the same situation. That's a really difficult situation there with the light on Second Street. You know, I guess they're not time right. So the cars just like block the entire Marin Boulevard, and you know, emergency vehicles have a hard time.
Yeah, so the issue with First and Second, there are a number of different issues. There's some retiming on Marin Boulevard that I'm going to be conducting this week. Generally, what happens, particularly in the morning peak hour, is Metro Plaza Drive and Marin Boulevard sort of acts like a choke point. So we're going to make that traffic signal timing more efficient, which will alleviate that choke point, and we'll probably be able to move more traffic in the northbound direction. I'm actually, our traffic signal contractor is going, he started today, he's out there tomorrow, and I'm going to be fine tuning it out with him in the field on Wednesday.
So we can see that you're Wednesday, right?
On Marin Boulevard, not on Central.
When we can see that the difference?
I can't promise that until probably early next year.
Only next year? You gotta done before the runoff election.
Ballots already got mailed.
Okay. All right.
All right, my next.
3D.
The 3D is an ordinance which designates 60 reserved parking spaces. It amends 2 and relocates 3. All of these applications have been reviewed by the Municipal Council Committee on Reserved Parking. And an important statistic that I'd like to point out is since our last approval in May, we've removed 74 reserved parking spaces. So we've removed 74, and this ordinance designates 60. So we're at a net positive of general parking since May.
Can you come to the meeting and read it into the record for me?
Absolutely, sure, okay.
Remove the council votes on that as well?
No, the ones that are removed, the council doesn't have to vote on them. That's just, they either moved away, okay. Yep.
Do you have a list of those?
I don't have it with me, but I could easily provide it, yeah.
What else we got?
Next item is 10A. I think we already talked about that, right? So then I have 10B.
10B.
10B is authorizing the closure of streets, Grove from Montgomery to Mercer and Montgomery from Grove to 195 Montgomery Street for Project Market.
Correct. This closure begins at 8 p.m. Friday and continues all the way till 8 p.m. on Sunday. This is for Grove Street directly in front of City Hall and Montgomery Street from Grove to roughly the midway point of Montgomery Street. This is for the Project Market Holiday Festival. Public Safety has reviewed and signed off on the application. My department has met with the Police Department and Cultural Affairs in the field to coordinate a traffic control plan to mitigate the negative traffic impacts of the closures. And it's not reflected on here, but I will have to send in a revised resolution because Montgomery Street will be reopened after the event on Saturday in the eastbound direction. Montgomery Street doesn't need to be closed after the Project Market Festival ends on Saturday evening.
I'm going to get a replacement resolution?
Yes.
Okay, and let me ask this one. Based on our city ordinance, when you want to do the block party, they have to be street only can close by people living their residence the block, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, have to be non-profit organization. So now, let me ask this one. The Project Market organizer is a non-profit organization?
Well, To your first point, a block party doesn't require a resolution. So the reason this is, we're proposing this to the council is because we're recommending that the council
Try to waive. Yes. So then now, let me ask the next question
Right.
is that, give me a three great reason why we have to waive those things.
I can give you 3 good reasons, but we also have a representative here from Cultural Affairs.
Can I speak to this guy?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have Director of Cultural Affairs, Christine Goodman here.
Your name?
Christine Goodman.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
How are you? I'm used
Good.
to seeing your pictures on
Yeah,
magazines.
no. Yes.
Let me ask this one first. That organization, Project Market, that's a non-profit one, it's a profit organization?
It is a nonprofit 501c3 organization, yes. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, yes.
Wasn't it just created about a year and a half ago?
I'm not sure of, this event is now in its 5th year. Yeah.
So you say this is a non-profit organization, because when I visited their website, they didn't say anything, you know?
Okay. They are a 501c3.
Yeah, okay. That's great to know that, okay? So, all right,
Are they
non-profit
pay-
organization.
Are they paying for police?
Yes.
Yes, but let me ask another question, because non-profit organization located in Jersey City, right?
Yes.
Okay. Another one is the Jersey Fire Department approved that no open frame, but actually they have some cooking things going on, as I understand. But why Jersey Fire Department approved that with no open frame? Why?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
No, here, you attached it.
No. Yeah.
No open flames.
No open frame. So another one.
Enclosed tents with heat.
Yeah, no open flame.
No open frame. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
So is the heat, is that what he's talking about maybe? The heat, is it
Oh, no.
flames heated?
So like if you tell them like barbecue, they should suppose they're like chocolate barbecue gas fire. They have an open frame, but they have no provide any food whatsoever. Period. Right?
Food trucks.
There
Except
is
the
food.
food truck.
Yeah, but there's no open flame.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that. Okay.
Sure.
And the Jersey Department of the Health and Human Service, they proved that, but without anything. Say anything. Why? They have no health inspector require or food will be sold. They not sell any food. But when I see that last year the event, they sell the food.
Food trucks, right? Yeah, they have.
Not
Yeah,
only
they're-
food truck, they have inside.
They
They
have
have
licenses.
Yeah.
Food trucks.
No, not only sell the food trucks. The other vendors sell the food also. When I see the photos, galleries, their event the last year.
Right. So what is your question?
But the question is that when I see the 2016, their project market event in here, I saw that they're cooking. When I see that they're visit the website to look at all the photos of what happened in 2016, they provide the food, they sell the food, but they sell the food, they're cooking, but they say no open frame. That's why I was wondering why they say no open frame, because they sell the food, cooking, the songs going on. And also health inspector, they're not required. Over here, yeah, see that. You didn't see?
They signed off.
They signed off.
Signed off, but they check nothing. They say, if when you sign off, they're supposed to say, well, a health inspector require or.
They didn't check that box.
Yeah.
We can amend this. We can amend this signature page fairly easily. We can amend that. We'll have an updated one for the Wednesday's meeting.
Yeah, just want to make sure.
Sure.
Because also. No, that's one thing now. Just we want to make sure that.
Dot the i's, cross the t's.
Sure, absolutely.
Make sure it's all tight as a drum.
Just want to make sure that we do that. Because when I see that the photos of 2016 event, they provide to sell the food, so on. So not only food truck, the vendor itself, but they prove that with a no food frame, I think that's not right to this council, number one. Number two, you say that that's the nonprofit organization located in Jersey City, right? Okay.
Okay. Last item. 10P. So a resolution authorizing a contract renewal with Gen Electric.
That's correct.
For maintenance and repair of traffic signals for the Department of Administration, Division of Engineering, Traffic and Transportation.
This is our second of 2 renewal years. The first contract year was 2016. This year was our first renewal. Next year is our second.
Any questions? Pretty straightforward. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Director Goodman. And now we have Steve Miller. 10-0 for Steve.
We always say oh when Steve comes up.
It's a resolution authorizing the renewal of a contract with Control Services LLC for snow removal, salting, and plowing for the Department of Public Works Division of Sanitation.
When is it just what? 10?
10-0.
Oh.
Okay. 10-0. This is pretty straightforward. It's a renewal contract. Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Steve. I guess it's from the top. Yeah?
No, I have some question.
Okay.
Yeah, don't go away. Oh, 10-0, here go. 10 here go. Can I ask?
For Steve?
Yeah, Steve Miller.
On the snow?
The snow removal. Last council meeting, they gonna move that the $550,000 from the sanitation to automotive department, division, you know.
Did you read John Metro's email?
Yes, I
to you?
read that, that's why I'm concerned. At the John Metro actual response about that, I want to make sure that $550,000 not moved that from the sanitation street cleaning project. He said no, the money come from the $550,000 come from the 2016, which is 2016, they not spend that the contract, the items which is remove snowing, so and so, okay? Here we go. His letter say that 500,000 transferred from the due to less climate, the weather experience this year. So 2016 less snow, so doesn't have to be spent $2 million. So money left over, $500,000 transferred someplace else. But when I see here, your documentation say contract, the purpose here in the back, they say that the former JC spent over $2 million in 2016. You guys say they spent $2 million in 2016 for the snow removal, and our budget department say, no, we didn't spend it. So we got money left over, so we allocated the money, $500,000 someplace else. So who is right?
Budget office.
The JCIA spent it from January to end of March 2016 when we had snowstorms. April 2016 is when the city took over, created the contract in the city's name. We didn't have that many storms after that, so there was money left over. That's what you're talking about, two different things. 2017.
Yeah, the extra money is in 2017.
Yes, the spot here said 2016. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, it shouldn't say that.
They're supplying you the prior resolution to show you that it's a renewal of last year's.
Yes,
resolution.
2016, we allocated almost $2.1 million for snow removal.
Yeah, but
2016.
That's 2 years ago. And it doesn't overlap, so.
So
it's the 2017 money
It's
that was
2017 that's reallocated. Yeah, it's confusing. Yeah, because you're right, it shouldn't say 2016, it should say 2017.
Right, in 2017, we only spent $60,000 from Public Works.
Yeah.
Up till now. We might have a little bit more if the snow's in December, hopefully it won't. But the reason there's money left over is because we didn't have a lot of snow in the beginning of 2017.
You can go fishing.
So, okay, so just make it clear that.
Yep.
So
That's in
17,
the
that's
email
16.
that I have from
All right,
Public
just want
Works.
to keep the records clear, right? Good.
Yeah, what we did was we used city workers on overtime as opposed to the contractor. That's where the money was saved. So that's the 500,000 in overtime for the city workers for dealing with the snowstorms, instead of calling in the contractor and not calling in the city workers. That's where the difference is.
And the another one, similar one here, that one item they want to try spend $71,000 to purchase a planter. Do you familiar with that? So DPW.
$71,000?
Yeah.
For what?
That's the purchase of planters. I don't know what they mean planters, you know.
Oh.
Is that here on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, which item is it?
Item is,
Let me see who's doing it.
while you are here, you can usually answer that.
Okay. The resolution,
It's a resolution, you know.
Ten N.
N?
N is in the answer.
Yeah, 10,
That should have been asked of,
yeah, 10N.
should have asked Joe Cunha, zoning engineer.
oh, I'm not familiar with that.
You are familiar?
I'm
No.
not, no.
He's not familiar.
No, we're not.
Should have asked Joe Cunha when he was here.
Joe?
Yeah.
Installation of planters.
Here all night.
So, yeah, maybe you can call, get the job. Joe Kuna?
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Yes,
We'll find
please.
out from
Yeah,
us.
because the reason is that we have to understand that every city council members is a people outside of downtown. They're always one of the complaints that city municipal service concentrate downtown. Reason is that they're gonna purchase I think a 3 foot high, 5 deep, 10 feet long, made by aluminum, and the cost is 7,100. And they're gonna buy 10 pieces.
Those are pretty expensive planters.
Yes.
I brought this up at the agenda meeting.
Okay.
You know, not only that, those are going to be used for at the Newark Avenue streetscape, whatever they call it. I don't know what it is, but you know what I'm saying. So now, when we look at it, Central Avenue, when we try to bring up the broken garbage can and the missing bench for the replace, I asked fight for 4 years. Still, I didn't see any difference to today.
Fair enough. Fair. Councilman has a point. Could say the same thing about MLK and West Side.
So you know what?
To find out from engineering on.
Please come up with another
Okay.
planter to spend $71,000. Come up planter how many garbage can they're going to purchase, how many bench you're going to purchase, provide the inner city, other part of the downtown to provide service that plant together. You know, they're insulting people. $7,000, 3 foot high, 5 foot deep, 10 foot long as a planters, aluminum made. Come
They
on.
won't get in anybody's, they won't break anyone's sidewalks or get into anyone's sewers.
Are these intended to be like barriers or something?
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, the Newark Avenue is a park, really.
If
So,
they're going to provide this a pedestrian plaza, then downtown SID should provide instead of the city of Jersey City.
well, it's a park, Councilman, let's be fair. We're redoing Mosquito Park,
Okay.
but let's find out the answer, because no one in the
Let's get
room
some information.
knows the
Yeah.
answer.
Okay.
So let's get your answer first.
I think that covers everything. The gentlemen are here for,
May I speak?
are you here for a particular item?
Ordinance number 17-152, which was, had its first reading at the last.
Oh, you can come to the meeting on Wednesday and speak about it. That's the appropriate time to address the council about a second reading ordinance. You don't have to sign up.
I'm happy to talk to you after the meeting. Okay.
What is
That's about the robotic,
Oh, no, I asked a question actually. Just a simple question, was it that? Simple. But I think maybe this
we
is
were
a
supposed to replace that, weren't we?
I think that I think they withdraw. They withdraw already, no? Withdraw? No, simple. So because we like to have a lot
No,
of.
we kept it on because you had advertised or something, right?
Yeah.
Is that-
That's right.
So we have to vote it down, but then there was supposed to be a new one introduced and drafted. Was that drafted?
Right.
Is that on here?
I haven't seen it.
I don't see it.
Yeah, to
Okay.
include CCTV.
It's gonna be voted down, sir.
Yeah, it's gonna vote
So I don't know
down.
if you have a vested interest in it personally, but it's gonna be, the council's gonna vote it down on Wednesday.
Can I ask the reason for that?
There
Yeah,
was.
if this is inappropriate, just tell me to stop. No, it's not.
We've started the dialogue, so.
So, the councilman had raised, and I think many of the colleagues on the council agreed that, including some cameras or other things there for security purposes and the like, and since they're not manned parking lots, and so they were supposed to amend, the law department was supposed to make an amendment and bring it to this meeting for a new ordinance, and it's not here. I brought it up at the agenda meeting as well and said it needed to be on here.
That's what I'm
but
saying, so the new ordinance
it's not here.
was, and this one was gonna be voted down.
Michael.
So,
That's fine, I appreciate your explanation. I was
Sure.
talking to Corporation Counsel office this morning, James LaBianca. He told me that we might need to be here this evening to answer any questions from the council, so that's why I'm here. But
So you're the owner, are you the owner?
I'm not, I work for the company that will be operating.
I'm not sure why you told me to do that.
Yeah, we're not sure why he told you that.
Okay, thank you.
We'll put something together. We'll get it done.
Okay.
Okay?
Actually, sort of in a similar vein for item 3, I'll be here for any questions.
She wasn't here.
Okay, we're gonna get to that right now. We're gonna go rush through this from the top, 3E.
I'd be happy to, sir. Let me get there. Get back there. E is an ordinance authorizing the city to renew the leases at 174, 176 Brunswick Street, 81 Garfield Avenue, 25 Ogden Avenue, 280 Grove Street, and 447 Martin Luther King Drive as part of the city's Adopt-A-Lot Community Garden Program. F is an ordinance you read about in the newspapers. This is going to allow the holders of plenary retail and distribution licenses to sell alcohol beverages beginning at 9 a.m. on Sundays whenever Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve fall on a Sunday.
Before we proceed, I asked the law department, when we did this first for Liberty National, and actually before that, about an ordinance to expand alcohol sales on Sundays for basically brunch at restaurants and so forth. And then the Liberty Harbor thing came out for the golf thing, and now this. So I'm not sure why we haven't drafted something up at this point, but
Okay, all right.
great to get that out.
So
Gonna try to get that on this meeting?
No, next year, it looks like it's gonna be,
Next time.
yeah. And we won't get it on for this year, it's unfortunate.
All right, G, an ordinance. I don't know, I think we have a typo here. Approving the entire length of Morris Boulevard from Park View Avenue to Marin Boulevard with the commemorative designation of Boys and Girls Club. H is, providing. We have,
Or no, wait, I'm sorry, wait, no, that was the wrong one. Yeah, it is.
Providing.
yeah, we have 3 typos in a row. GH and I are all adding commemorative names to streets. Morris Boulevard from Park Avenue to Marin Boulevard as Boys and Girls Club Way. H, portion of Newark Avenue from 2nd Street to Monmouth Street with the commemorative designation of Peter J. Zampella Senior Way. His daughter is a been an employee with city planning for a long time. 3I, an ordinance providing the portion of Danforth Avenue from Princeton Avenue to John F. Kennedy Boulevard with the commemorative designation of Frank J. Queso Way. He was a gun purveyor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
JK, done. L, an ordinance authorizing, actually consenting to, one, the purchase of the senior housing project located at 1065 Summit Avenue by Muhlenberg Senior Housing Urban Renewal LLC, and two, the transfer and assignment of the project's tax exemption from the current owner to the purchaser, and three, approving an extension of the project's tax exemption for an additional 3 years pursuant to the limited dividend nonprofit corporations or associations law.
This is what you're here for? Yeah, come on up. If you could tell us your name.
Hi, good evening. Farhan Ali. I'm here on behalf of the purchaser.
Your name, last name is Oliver?
Ali, A-L-I.
A-L-I, and Farah is?
Farhan, it's F as in Frank, A-R-H-A, N as in Nancy.
Farhan.
Perfect.
Got it.
Okay, number one, the minimum of the senior housing.
Yeah.
So, you know, so one of the senior housing, what people are so proud of it to have in Heights. And especially that, what's the name, the Karen, was it Ken?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's managed the building really. He's a really good. He care about the senior and the building itself. I'm hoping he continue to able to provide, service in that area. And number two, so before was a non-profit organization, was now new purchase is a profit organization, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so now corporation council, when they have a tax rebate to change the ownership, they're supposed to pay to the city of New Jersey certain transaction fee.
No, not this ordinance.
Not this ordinance?
Right.
No, not this ordinance, but I mean, before they approve the city council, they're based on financial agreement. When they tax rebate, change the ownership, 100% ownership to change, they're supposed to pay they call transaction fee. Is that not this case?
Not in this case, absolutely not. This is, Muhlenberg Gardens has been there for.
No, we know that, but I'm talking about, this one has like a 40 years of tax abatement.
Under the prior statute, which this property falls under, as you said, the limited dividend nonprofit housing corporations or associations law, NJSA 55:16-1, there is no transfer fee. You're thinking of it under the long-term tax exemption law, that would be different, but this is the predecessor statute to that. And every agreement that's currently in play, although repealed, those stay in play. And that's
what I'm asking.
absolutely. I looked into that 100%. Yes.
So what is the different operation-wise, non-profit and the profit? Your company, the other former company, how is it different?
There shouldn't be any difference. They want to maintain this as the low and moderate income senior housing project. That's part of why they're asking for the extension for the additional 3 years, is so they can maintain that. It'll give them time to actually do a rehabilitation of the project, put in a number per unit, and obtain additional HMFA financing and bonds that way. So their goal is to maintain it as it is, to ensure the Heights and Jersey City has the low income and the senior housing that it already does. So that is why we're asking for the 3 additional years. The statute allows for a 50-year. It, I believe, currently is at 40 years. We just need the 3 additional years for the financing.
The city council extend 3 more years, then 3 more years later. So in other words, what year is it? 2025?
22. Well, actually, it currently extends into 2019. The 3 additional years would move into 2022.
Okay. After 2022, usually tax abatement is the same term with the affordable housing unit years-wise. So now 3 years later, what happened?
Well, they actually plan to do a major rehabilitation of the project and obtain the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency bonds. It should maintain an exemption for them in that regard. They've already talked with the council's office and we've discussed with the mayor's office that the major improvement they hope to do on this property will allow it to stay as a low-income housing and obtain a new exemption going forward. But for this exemption, they need to maintain it just through the 2022.
Get 2022 after that. You guys have actually power to change to market price. Are there any plans to do that? Or
there isn't. Actually, the organization purchasing this property, their focus is low and moderate income housing.
Okay.
Vitus, which is, I believe, the developer, Integra, which is assisting in this, and now they've created the urban renewal company, the Muhlenberg Senior Housing Urban Renewal. It's all part of the same organization, which focuses on low and moderate income housing.
Okay, they're gonna stay,
That is the plan.
okay, in the future too.
In the future, the organization focuses on low and moderate income housing. They're not looking to turn this into a market rent, another skyrise. They want to maintain low and moderate income housing.
Can we bring that, and this ordinance, that word, just add the one word, we extend the 3 more years, that the tax abatement, but also they're gonna stay in another 30 years as a low-income housing or affordable housing in that area.
Well, as long as we have the benefit of the tax exemption for low-income housing, they'll stay as low-income housing. To the extent they, the city would take away that exemption, or even to the extent they obtain the HMFA financing, or they don't, they plan to do a rehabilitation of the project and aim to stay as low-income housing, but I don't know if they can bind themselves for 30 years, especially if the city can come in and remove the tax exemption.
The senior in the building, that's what they worry about so much. They say after 3 extension, 3 years tax abatement, then if the company decides change to market values apartment or so on, so then they worry about what happened.
Right, and I can understand why that's a concern, but I believe this is a 150-unit project, and all of the units are subject to the Section 8 housing. They've done everything through HUD, through HMFA. The whole parent company only does low and moderate income housing. So their goal is to remain that way. I just don't know if the city can bind them to that outside of a financial agreement, which they hope to enter into. And the financial agreement, which originally granted the tax exemption, keeps them as low and moderate income housing. What they're looking to renew, and when they're looking to do the rehabilitation and obtain the additional exemption going forward, it would all be to maintain this as low and moderate income
See, now,
housing.
Maybe the law department can chime in here.
Right, yeah, so just to echo what you just said, we would have to enter a separate agreement to accomplish what you're suggesting.
A la college towers.
So now, what our concern is that a lot of senior actually come down my office, they bring up the issue is the Section 8. When the Section 8, that the rental price is based on market area, that's number one, the base. So now, after they renovate, they say, oh, market value is now so much. Instead of 1,200 one bedroom, they say 1,500, and that the Section 8 only they provide $1,000. Then the tenant have to be, used to be they matching like a $200 to pay rent. Now maybe they have to pay $300. That's the issue now, they're concerned by tenant.
That's a forecast, Councilman.
No, it's not forecast, that's what they have to
Councilman,
do.
you're asking them to commit to 30 years, and they want to commit, but they also want to have an abatement for that time period. So they're gonna come back for that. There's no way that they can commit to what you're asking.
It's a separate issue from this.
Yeah,
It's not it's a separate issue.
Why do you need the
With this, they're.
You renew the abatement, it stays affordable.
Absolutely, no, but I hear what you're saying.
When does it expire?
Currently in 2019, September, I believe September 2019, we're looking for that 3-year extension.
But he's saying, if he makes improvements on it within the 3 years, kind of like raising the value, whatever, of the units that are associated inside of the building. The concern is that whatever the tenants are paying currently right now will be a little bit more.
Right, I understand the position. I don't think that should be a problem here. Part of the reason for doing the rehabilitation is so through the law department we can obtain another tax exemption. Without the rehabilitation, we wouldn't obtain a tax exemption. Under the long-term tax exemption law,
It has to be
a substantial
renovated,
improvement.
yeah, otherwise you don't get the abatement.
Either new construction or.
And let me just add that, if you take that position, you're putting property owners in a catch-22 because you want buildings to be updated and rehabilitated. You don't want buildings falling down.
In order for him to see the abatement, he has to put the work in.
Right.
They've already planned to do that.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. So 3 years. Still, I'm going to be a council person, so I'm going to keep
He
on.
got reelected, just how.
I hope to be here. I hope to be representing for the first reading.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Ali, do you have, I'd like to speak to you offline about your admission procedures there?
Yes.
Or someone in your,
I should have a card, and if I don't, I will reach out to you.
You read about
Yep.
vacancies last week.
Thank you very much.
sure.
Thank you.
Okay,
So we have a question for the chief
Oh,
engineer.
Joe Cunha's here.
He reappeared.
Who had a question?
Lazarus.
Yeah, I think the resolution 10
Yeah, this is about the planters.
Planters,
Joe, or
right.
do you have any idea?
No, it's with the expensive planters downtown, nowhere else.
Oh, no, that's not true. All you have to do is ask. There's funds available.
From the former phases 1 through 5 for Newark Avenue Streetscape, city capital funding, still available. As a matter of fact, we checked 6 locations in India Square for the possibility of putting in some decorative arches. I think they've been talked about for many years, but the sheer amount of utilities under the sidewalk. Correct.
The Indians the other night told me that that's a dead issue.
It's not totally dead, but it's hanging by a thread.
Okay.
To be very honest with you, we did 6 hand-dug test pits to try to find. No, actually about the arches, but I'm just drawing the comparison that on one end of Newark we were looking to do a sizable project, and now on the other, this is what they asked for there. This money is for all of Newark Avenue. It's not limited to any one area. So if we'd like to.
This funding not from the city, but it comes from the federal grant, was it?
No grant. It's city capital money that's still there. If you recall years ago.
When?
His question was, when you were here, that like, why isn't there money for central or other?
It just has to be entered in
The next capital budget and specified for what it's needed, and then it goes before you, the governing body, to approve or disapprove the line item to fund it. So if you,
This council approved that capital funding before.
this goes back probably almost 10 years, this funding. These are custom planters, they're very sizable. They also have a bit of a public safety aspect to them, so that cars can't barrel through so easily. We're also going to be looking into, very soon, putting in some removable bollards, especially in light of what happened in New York City. I don't know if you know, the city was hit with a very sizable lawsuit as well, because the victim's family says, right. The victim's family is claiming that the city is liable to have protected that area, which is specified for bikes and pedestrians. And, you know, it also happened in Barcelona a few months ago. It's the new. The exact layout I don't know at this time, but I know that the bollards will be right down the center, and they will be removable bollards. The keys will only be provided to public safety, so that if fire needs to get through there.
That's my concern is that. So I don't think if there is an issue with the fire, we don't have time to waste with the key. Right. We have to be able to get to that fire as soon as possible. That's my big concern is when we block off roads like that, big planters, you're kind of like putting a little bit of the public in, you're jeopardizing their safety, because if you have to get off, open, or which key, that's a stressful moment for a firefighter.
So you cannot even remove the planters, because the planters are waste heavy enough to block the terrorists.
I can guarantee that the planters will not be in the center part of the roadway. If anything, they will be on the edges, and the center gap between them would be filled in with removable bollards. But that begs a bigger conversation between us and public safety to decide exactly what we want to do, because it's a trade-off. You either have the public safety protection for terrorism, or it's a balance, really, or you have the, in case of fire or in case of quick access. They will be removable and quick enough that, they'll be reasonably quickly removed, but what is reasonable and how much time does it take? It needs to be discussed a little further. We haven't ordered anything as far as bollards or anything like that, but
So we don't know spend how they're going to locate their piece, and we're going to purchase it at $71,000 worth.
This is separate. This is more of an aesthetic. I was just assuming that it's going to have also a public safety aspect to it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a streetscape fund. It's titled as such in the bond ordinance, and as such, we should discuss other areas of Newark Avenue that can be improved with that funding.
Issues, that has it more than 10 years ago?
I don't think it's more than 10. I could get you the exact year, though. Yeah, I just know we completed, I believe it's 5 phases of streetscapes over the years, all ending. Actually, the final phase ended when I got here in late 2015. That was Tunnelly to JFK Boulevard, the paving and some, after PSC&G and the MUA finished their utility work.
Keep quiet, because we not use this money for, you know.
No, absolutely not. We will discuss, you and I. You tell me what kind of limits you're looking for a streetscape.
Also the benches in Central Avenue.
So it begs a more broad conversation that we should have very soon, because I believe the capital budget cycle will begin in the first quarter of next year.
So then, why don't you do this way, Joe? You are the great guys, one of the great men. We have a lot of great people work City Hall, so thank God. But can't you give us some kind of that we can send you email the wish list to each district, what we like, the first things we should take care of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I welcome that from every council person at any time, really. Not just speed humps and whatnot. We have a running list for the speed humps, but obviously you all know how to get in touch with me and tell me whatever you have, and we'll prioritize it as best we can. Put it forth back to you all for selection. All right, thank you.
From the top again.
3 a.m. I think. Are we?
I think we're going to go back.
Yeah, let me find it. My fingers don't get to where I want to get to so quickly. I'm sorry.
3M.
3M. This is an ordinance amending the Chapter 304 taxation to include payments to the public school district.
So I'd like to thank the council president to get put in the agenda to be able to discuss this. This is what is a school funding from the tax abatement, especially market value. So mayor's actually executive order, they give us 1% of that actually annual gross revenue from the developed company, I mean the income from the tax of the project. But this is, we're going to make sure that 2.5% to go school. So as you know that now public school is under the city of Jersey City, so we're able to provide a reasonable some funding for our public school. So I think that this is one of the way to invest our future education, the future of our children. Jersey is a great idea. Thank you for your Chris Hessen, Councilman Richie Bugiano, and the Council President.
You don't have to thank me.
I thank to you. Yeah. Other than that,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, this one probably dead again, but you know.
All right, N, we talked about. N.
N is which one?
The Grand Jersey Redevelopment Plan. We talked about that. We have O, which is the snow and ice removal.
So this
That's
is
the long ordinance that you received just prior to the meeting.
Wanted to add this before the year ends, because in case there's snow, before next year's council comes in and gets sworn into office. So this essentially expands the pathway in our ordinance to make it ADA compliant with those ADA requirements. It's fairly self-explanatory. Just allows for the pathways to be shoveled in a way that requires it to be so that people with disabilities can pass through as well. Okay.
Moving on to resolutions. Ten A and B we did.
Actually, can I just?
We're going to get a replacement for B. Yes, Councilor.
Robert, and Council, if I may indulge you, I'm looking for an ordinance that Joanne drafted that also has to do with snow. Hopefully get it on before this, I think it would increase some of the fines for if you fail to shovel your front. I'll share it with you prior to Wednesday, if I can find it. Increasing fines for failure to shovel, yeah. I'm sorry, repeated failure to shovel. So if you're like a repeat offender, I think it was,
One of the things that, I mean, that's for later, maybe we could amend, or, you know, just, it's a conversation we should have, you know, amongst ourselves. For those small streets, I mean, we're out there in the snow when they're shoveling. Maybe if we can, you know, maybe just allow the cars to park like half on the sidewalk and half on the street, so that a big snow plow can come through there, you know, instead of, because with them small streets like Patterson Street, Grant Ave, you know, that's very small streets. And again, you know, I'm always thinking about public safety, you know, in case of an emergency, you know, you're gonna have a situation there. But at least, you know, when it snows, if they couldn't be allowed to park like that, I'm not sure, you know, what's the law part about it, you know, with respect to the sidewalk. But, you know, maybe we can, you know, I've always been thinking about having them park half and half so it can widen up the street.
Great. Can I ask this one? Because even though increase the fine, the fine not clean shovel the snow on the sidewalk. You know, but people's, even though they get the ticket from the city hall, the city of Jersey, but neighbor don't know that they look at it, the city still do nothing. There any way we can build some system? First things, if they not remove the snow in 8 hours, I think 8 hours, right? Yeah, 8 hours after snowfall. Then city of Jersey can take action. We sent our manpower to clean and the bill to the property owner.
Well, they had
That's not
cases.
the answer. Are you directing it to?
Yeah. Can we do that?
It's an operational issue, right?
Yeah,
It's,
because you know what? Give the ticket, $200 ticket or $300 ticket. Even the city's issue, the still street is covered by snow. You know,
City had a
more like a proactive. We clean. 8 hours, you know, later you're not clean. We clean and we send the bill based on per hours or so. You know what I'm saying? I think that there more impact to public safety wise. You should just ticket
There's a
itself.
problem with whether we would have enough manpower, so to do that. But the city has cleaned up lots in the past and put liens on those lots for the value of the cleanup. So there must be a legal way of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a prior program where volunteers went out and did it for folks.
Yes, but when you
Yeah,
depend
but
on
it's
volunteer,
making
I don't see any legal problems with it, but, I mean, from a policy standpoint, I don't know if you wanna, you know, you'd have to look at the amount of the fines, because some folks might just say you make the fine $50, some folks might just say, I'm not gonna do the snow. I'll just get fined, I get free snow removal for $50.
Fees, they say, if you're not clean the snow, we're gonna fine $200 plus clean the street $150 like that. You know what I'm saying? So can we?
Maybe we can do it, but, you know, the resources left for trash.
No. Actually, if you see that, you believe or not, if we say that we're gonna charge $150 and if the city of Jersey put on the side that we're looking for like a snow cleaner, $20 an hour, and so on and so, we're gonna have a lot of people gonna be joining. You know, but when your city program is depend on volunteer, really, I'm telling you.
Okay, Jason, when can we, you know, entertain what I was talking to you about before?
About putting the cars on the sidewalk.
But see, we'll have to look at it. It's an interesting idea, but there's state regulations on the use of sidewalks and the use of streets and right-of-ways. And we have our own, I wish Joe was still here because he knows all those state regulations, but I don't know if we can do that legally. But we'll certainly look at it. We'll certainly look into it.
And can the sidewalk support the weight of the vehicle?
And again, then you're impacting I don't know.
Okay, so you'll look into it and let
Yeah,
the
we'll
councilman
look
know?
into it and we'll let
Okay.
So like, can you look at the both sides, okay? We have something like that.
Okay, we can blast through C through G. They're all allowing the BA to discharge mortgages at 31 Clendenny, 67 Corbin, 77 Van Nostrand, 292 Webster, and 91 Woodlawn. H, a guy I went to high school with, Johnny Nagel, for 40 years of track and field and cross-country coaching at St. Dominic Academy. It's like the Bob Hurley of track and field in Hudson County.
Who's presenting this?
It was already presented.
You gave it to him. You did? Okay. Great.
Yeah, we could a month ago, we have some resolution now, yeah. A resolution honoring Dr. Constrancia C. Yule on the occasion of her retirement. J is authorizing the settlement of the lawsuit Kristen Gabatosi versus the City of Jersey City et al. And K, we have to do something about this person, Pat Carabellisi, who seems to lose her third-party tax sale certificates on a regular basis. Fortunately, she gets hit with a $100 fee by the tax collector for doing that. L is appointing Kelly Costigan as Petty Cash Fund Custodian for the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire. M we did earlier with Ms. Flanagan. N we did earlier as O, P, and Q were done. We have to do R, S, and T. We're purchasing R. We're purchasing ammunition so our police officers can qualify and practice at the driving range, at the shooting range. Mixing golf and bullets, a little different, right? S, ratifying the renewal of an amendment of a professional services agreement with the law firm of Spiro LLC to represent Police Officer Matthew Kilroy in the matter of Marcos Verdecia and David Bernardi versus the City of Jersey City et al. 10T, our schedule of meetings and caucuses for 2018.
Okay, so Council President? Okay, so now first things, reorganization meeting is January 1st. Actually, January 1st is holiday.
Yeah, we all know that.
Yeah, so we shouldn't do that.
Well,
there was no reason to do that the January 1st. It's a holiday. We should spend what, January 1st? Why look at me like this?
everyone should be sober by 5 o'clock at night, and we're having a 7 o'clock meeting.
No.
The inaugural will be 5 o'clock at night.
That's crazy.
And
Oh, in
the meeting
January?
at 7, on January 1st.
We're gonna,
It's a Monday, it's a Monday.
In the holiday?
It's a Monday and a holiday. I'm as pleased as punch as you are, but it's
Who picked this out, Robert?
And
the big guy.
But January 1st.
The big guy who got 79%
It's a
of the
holiday.
votes.
Well, that's a holiday.
It's a municipal holiday.
And Hoboken is being sworn in.
Hoboken is
It happens all over the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, but
Presumably everybody does it on January 1st.
Let me ask
Right.
you this one.
If you were getting sworn in for the first time, you wouldn't be complaining.
No. Let me ask you this one. No. Doesn't matter. It's the first time, second time, doesn't matter. Let me ask you this one. January 1st is a legal holiday, yes or no?
Yeah, I was here on a legal holiday all day, election day.
No. So now, if we conduct inauguration January 1st, legal holiday, then we gotta, the city employee who are involved at the inauguration, we gotta pay the what, double? Pay the city employee.
I may not be here.
I'm not getting it.
It doesn't matter.
But you are managing, so you are maybe not getting it, I don't know, but lots of city employees probably involved that in preparatory inauguration January 1st. We gotta pay for the double that they pay. Is that fair? Why we cannot wait for another day, so January 2nd? That's another way to, what do you look at me like that?
No, I'm trying to figure out what employee.
What employee?
Yeah.
You're gonna do
We're gonna have it in
city
the council
hall?
chambers.
Yeah, council, but we don't need a city employee not gonna be participating in anything like that?
Maybe the guy that runs
preparation,
the boiler.
cultural fair? No?
Maybe the guy that runs the
The
boiler.
security at the front, and Robert,
Yeah.
and most of the people who are gonna be there are gonna be management.
No, we gotta make it clear. Let me ask Greg Crowder, because he involved inauguration mob almost 30
Greg
times.
won't be here. Okay, Greg
Well,
won't
we
be
think
here.
it's a holiday.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. He said, right, it's a holiday. When you put the inauguration, bring up to 300, 400, maybe 500 people to come to the city of Jersey City, in this chamber, we're gonna put a lot of people walk from the cultural fair and the DPW, which is a holiday. We gotta pay double.
For what, Councilman? We're gonna do it in the council chamber.
No, I think, look, in fairness to Mike, 2013, it was a pretty grand inauguration, right?
It's
So,
gonna be more sedate. Half
I
of
think he's
people-
looking for verification of that, otherwise.
It's gonna be more sedate.
Remember
It's
last
gonna-
time it was like Chris Christie was there, and everybody was like.
Well, I expect some
President Sweeney.
I expect dignitaries will be there. I don't expect Sweeney, but perhaps our new governor.
Here at City Hall, January 1st?
He's gonna be in Hoboken at 2 o'clock, I can bet you that.
Well, I'm gonna speak to him, tell him not to come, because we're not coming.
Did you want to?
You can take.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Take, you know what, you can boycott the meeting and
No,
take your oath
okay.
from me on
Why don't
the
you put it up
second.
on Thanksgiving? Council President.
Everything by changing.
Schedule.
Hold on. One at a time.
Yeah.
Councilman Young.
Yes, sir. Schedule, we have to decide, council. So first things is January 1st, reorganization meeting, we should move to January 2nd, you know what I'm saying? We should be not rush that and so on. So January 2nd. And another one, what are they called? Another one is July 16 and the July 18. Usually summertime, we have a 10 a.m. meeting.
Yeah,
Because the
it's
reason.
like, it's there.
Yeah, reason is one of the reasons at the time, years ago, City of New Jersey's chamber have a no air conditioning system. That's why we go around to use one of the public school. But we have a really damn good air conditioning system in that room. We have no reason to have the daytime it's a meeting because why? There's a lot of confusion. No, we
But you all voted last year for 2 daytime meetings during the summer.
Yes, but it's a time to correct it because we did that.
Correct
that
it.
was then, this is now. So I like to move to that instead of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the 5:30 and the 6 p.m. as regular. And especially those days, what happened? We approved the budget. Last time, you know what happened? When we approved the budget at 10 a.m., only 3 people to show up.
Because there was no tax increase.
That was a special meeting, wasn't it?
That was a special
I
meeting.
don't think that was a scheduled meeting.
Yes, so now my recommendation, we gotta give to a fair opportunity, or better opportunity, not a fair, it's a better opportunity to people. So instead of the summertime, instead of 10 a.m., we move to that's 6 o'clock. And another one is that September 11, the Tuesday, because September 10 is a Christopher Columbus Day, so we move to Tuesday then.
No, September?
September 11th.
Yeah, we're observing a Jewish holiday.
Jewish holiday then because we move to Monday to Tuesday, then our meeting Wednesday move to Thursday because when we have the meeting is a Tuesday, Wednesday, when we ask
knock you out.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Jeez. Get serious.
No.
I mean, really.
I'd like the summer to be 10 a.m. meetings because it actually works. All the summer.
Because the staff is here.
Exactly. I mean, we have 2 different views, but I'd rather
vote
on 10 a.m. meetings.
We grind it out 20 nights a year.
Exactly.
This is a way for people to participate during the day.
I'd like 2 more 10 a.m. meetings.
So now, maybe
I'm
everybody has
serious.
different
I'm
opinion.
very serious.
Yes, different opinion, you can have that. But when I look at it, there was no reason to hold the 10 a.m. because participating public is much less than 6 p.m. the meeting, number 1. Okay, number 2, because of that we have air conditioning system, there was no reason to 10 a.m. meeting. It's there.
So, Council President, I'd like 2 more 10 a.m. meetings on that. If we can work on that.
This will just go up for a vote.
And the city statute, you talk about the city statute. Even though we have a meeting 5:30 Caucus and the 6 o'clock meeting, there have a city statute actually participating.
If you want to amend it, you can make a motion at the meeting to amend any of the dates and times. And if you've got 5 council people to support the amendment, then it'll move forward. Otherwise.
Listen, I spend a lot of time making this schedule, and it's not based on my want or desire. When I became city clerk, there was one night from September through June when the meetings were held at night. All caucuses were daytime, and every other meeting was daytime. Now everything is in the nighttime, and the council has historically taken the summertime and made it a break for the staff who doesn't have to come and spend till 8, sometimes 9 o'clock here. So,
So the last thing I would just say about this is, and I think it went without much notice, Greg mentioned if you have a concern about the inauguration, As you start 2018, maybe have a conversation with the mayor about that and open up the lines of communication on that conversation, if I may suggest, humbly suggest. Okay, let's move on.
I'm so pissed I don't know where I am. Oh, okay. W, a resolution authorizing the insertion of special items of revenues and appropriations in our budget. We received some grants since we've adopted the budget, and our only remaining item is Z1. It's the Jersey City Employment and Training Workforce Innovation Resolution. Any questions on that?
Where at?
That's the one that was given out. It might be hiding behind an ordinance I gave you. Should be the last one in the pile. Any questions at 8:17? Motion by Councilperson Rivera, seconded by the President. By all in attendance, by acclamation, absent Kajewski, Osborne, and Waterman. Say goodnight.